You hear the sound first, metal grinding against teeth, a sharp crack, then another, then screaming. You're standing inside the throne room of Baghdad, February 1258, the wealthiest city on earth. The man on his knees is the Caliph, leader of the Islamic world, 36 years on the throne. A ruler who believed his position placed him beyond consequence, beyond threat, beyond mortality. Now he's gagging on his own riches. Gold coins are forced into his mouth, blood spilling as metal and teeth scatter across the marble floor. Mongol commanders laugh as they shove more in, watching a man who once commanded empires choke on the symbol of his pride. From the next chamber, you hear hooves striking stone, horses driven across polished floors, then screams, then silence. His sons were wrapped tightly in carpets and crushed beneath trampling horses, killed without a blade, because royal blood was considered too valuable to spill. His daughters were dragged into the streets, their cries echoed for hours before disappearing into the smoke. 8 centuries of dynasty, a city that held the world's greatest libraries, the intellectual heart of civilization, gone in 7 days. And what was done to this family, what was done to Baghdad, is the part history prefers not to explain. This is Crown and Dagger, and this is what really happened. If these stories matter to you, support the channel with a like and a subscribe. So how does a ruler end up suffocating on his own gold while his sons die in the next room? It begins with a letter. September 1257. A message arrives from Hulagu Khan. It's read aloud in the Caliph's court. Al-Mustasim listens quietly. His advisors watch his face, searching for concern. They don't find it. Instead, he smiles. Then he laughs. That single moment of certainty, of arrogance, sealed the fate of a city, a family, and a civilization. Because empires don't always fall to armies. Sometimes they fall to disbelief. And by the time Baghdad realized the threat was real, it was already too late. Until next time. These barbarians don't know who they're speaking to. That laugh would cost him everything. Al-Mustam wasn't just any king. He was the Caliphate, the successor to Muhammad himself, the spiritual authority over millions of Muslims, a title stretching back 37 generations. And Baghdad wasn't just any city. For 500 years, this was the center of human knowledge. The House of Wisdom held texts that would take 3 lifetimes to read. Scholars traveled from Spain to Samarkand just to study here. Population over 1 million, the wealthiest city on earth. And the Caliph believed it was untouchable. The letter from Hulagu Khan had been simple. You have heard what befell the cities of Persia. Submit or learn what the others learned. The Caliph's vizier begged him to reconsider. These are not raiders. This is a machine. The Khwarezmian Empire had 400,000 soldiers, all gone. Nishapur had walls 30 feet thick, erased. We cannot fight them. We can only survive them. The Caliph waved his hand. We are the Caliphate. We do not submit to horsemen. And then he did nothing. He didn't prepare. He didn't pay for defenses. He didn't open his treasury. That treasury. Rooms filled with gold, silver, jewels, wealth that could have bought the largest army in the world. Instead, it sat in the dark, untouched, while the storm gathered. 5 months later, 150,000 Mongols surrounded Baghdad. The walls fell. The Caliph sent a message. I will surrender. Spare the city. Hulagu's response. Present yourself at my camp. Bring your family. 36 years on the throne, and he walked into that camp with his sons and daughters like lambs. What would you have done? Tell me in the comments. February 13th, 1258, Al-Mustasim walked out of Baghdad. He brought his 3 sons, his 3 daughters, 3,000 members of the court, ministers, scholars, generals, all unarmed. Mongol guards flanked them immediately, silent, watching. The procession moved through the Mongol camp. Thousands of soldiers observed. No insults, no violence, just eyes everywhere. Hulagu received the Caliph in his command tent. His first question was practical. Where is your treasury? The Caliph hesitated. We are prepared to offer tribute. Where is it? Soldiers were sent. They returned hours later. The look on their faces said everything. Gold ingots, thousands, silver coins in countless chests. Jewels accumulated over 800 years. Silk enough to clothe an army, all sitting there untouched, while the walls crumbled, while soldiers went unpaid, while the city prepared for nothing. Hulagu ordered the Caliph taken to his own treasury, back into Baghdad, through streets now controlled by Mongol soldiers, past buildings beginning to burn, to his own vault. The doors were open. Hulagu walked him through room by room, vault by vault, no words. But the question filled the silence. Why was this here while your walls crumbled? Why was this locked away while your soldiers starved? Why did you protect gold instead of your people? The Caliph had no answer. Hulagu nodded slowly. You love this more than your empire, more than your army, more than your family. He paused. Now you will taste it. What happened next was recorded by the Persian historian Rashid Alin. The Caliph was forced to his knees in his own treasury, surrounded by the gold he'd hoarded while his city burned. Mongol soldiers grabbed his jaw, forced it open, and began shoving gold coins into his mouth. One by one, the Caliph tried to spit them out. They held his mouth shut, pushed more in. His teeth cracked against the metal. His gums split, blood mixed with gold on his lips. They kept going. More coins, then more, forcing them past his throat into his stomach. Hulagu watched, no emotion. You starved your army to fill these vaults. You let your walls crumble to protect this gold. Now let it fill you. Let it be the last thing you taste. The Caliph Khan pulsed, his body trying to reject what was being forced inside. His stomach tearing from within. He collapsed on the floor of his own vault, blood and gold pouring from his mouth. But they didn't let him die. Not yet. Because Hulagu had ordered the children brought in. And what came next? The gold was mercy compared to this. The Caliph had 3 sons. Prince Mubarak, 23 years old, the eldest, the heir to everything. He had been groomed since birth to rule the Islamic world. Educated by the finest scholars, trained in diplomacy, prepared for a throne he would never sit on. He had spent his entire life being told he was destined for greatness, that one day millions would kneel before him. Prince Ahmed, 21, the middle son, quieter than his brother, more thoughtful. He spent his days in the House of Wisdom, studying astronomy and poetry. He preferred books to politics, stars to thrones. He never wanted to rule, he just wanted to understand. Prince Ali, 14, still half a child, still young enough to believe his father could fix anything, still innocent enough to think this nightmare would end. He had never seen violence, never seen death. The worst thing that had ever happened to him was a tutor who was too strict. They were dragged into the treasury, chains on their wrists, terror in their eyes, and then they saw their father on the floor, blood and gold on his lips, barely breathing. The most powerful man they had ever known, reduced to a broken thing gasping in the corner. Prin. C.E. Mubarak tried to run to him. Mongol guards slammed him back. Father, no response. The Caliph's eyes were open, but there was nothing behind them anymore. Hulagu stepped forward. He looked at the 3 boys the way a butcher examines livestock before the blade. Where's your God now? Silence. The kind of silence that fills a room when hope leaves it. Prince Mubarak stepped forward. Maybe it was courage. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the last reflex of a prince who had never learned to kneel. Allah will punish you for this. Hulagu didn't laugh, didn't mock. He just nodded slowly like a teacher acknowledging a student's final answer, then gave a quiet command. The Mongols followed ancient beliefs. Royal blood must never touch the ground. Spilling it directly brings cosmic imbalance, bad fortune for generations. So when they needed to execute nobility, they had developed another method. The carpet guard seized Prince Mubarak first, the eldest, the heir. He fought, of course he fought. He was 23 years old and watching his world collapse. But there were too many hands, too many soldiers. They threw him to the ground, unrolled a heavy Persian rug, and began wrapping him inside it. Layer after layer, tighter and tighter until he couldn't move his arms, couldn't move his legs, couldn't turn his head, could barely breathe. His voice muffled inside the wool, rose into desperate cries. Father, Father, help me. The Caliph didn't move. Please, someone, anyone. The carpet was laid full. And on the cold marble floor, Mongol horsemen brought their war horses forward, massive animals trained for battle, each one weighing more than 5 men, and they rode over the carpet. The sound, Rashid Aline described it as wood, breaking. But that's not quite right. It was wetter, deeper, the sound of something that was meant to be whole becoming something that wasn't. They rode over him again and again. Inside the carpet, the cries changed, first desperate, then agonized, then just sounds. Animal sounds that didn't belong to a human anymore. Then nothing. The Caliph watched everything. His firstborn son, the boy he had raised to be Caliph, the heir to 800 years of dynasty, crushed under horse hooves while wrapped in a rug. He didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't move. There was nothing left inside him that remembered how. Prince Ahmed was next, 21 years old, the scholar, the poet. He didn't fight when they grabbed him. He had just watched his older brother die. He knew what was coming. They wrapped him the same way, tight, suffocating. As they laid the carpet down, he screamed one word over and over. Father, father, father. The horses came. The screaming stopped. The caliph still didn't move. His eyes were open but seeing nothing. His mind had gone somewhere far away, somewhere these sounds couldn't reach him. Then they grabbed Prince Ali, 14 years old, the youngest, the baby of the family. He didn't try to be brave. He didn't curse Hulagu. He didn't invoke Allah. He just cried. Great heaving sobs that shook his entire body. Tears streaming down his face, snot running from his nose. Every wall of princely dignity completely collapsed. Please, please, I don't want to die. Please. He called for his father, called for his mother, called for his brothers who were already gone, called for anyone who might save him. No one answered. The guards wrapped him tighter than the others. His small body almost disappeared inside the heavy rug. Just a tiny bump in the carpet, easy to miss. The horses came. The sound was different this time. Quieter, smaller bones break with less noise. It was over faster. When they rolled the 3 carpets aside, dark stains had spread across the white marble floor. 3 stains, 3 sons, 3 futures erased. Hulagu turned to the caliph. The old man hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. His eyes stared at the stains on the floor like he was trying to solve a puzzle that would never make sense. Your sons are gone. Your dynasty ends here. Hulagu paused. But we're not finished. He nodded toward the door. Bring the daughters. 3 daughters remained. Princess Zab, 25, the eldest daughter, brilliant. She had studied philosophy, spoke 5 languages, wrote poetry read in courts from Cairo to Damascus. Princess Kadia, 20, quieter, gentler. She spent her days in gardens tending flowers. Princess Aisha, 12. The baby, small enough that her bracelet still slipped down her thin wrists. They had been kept in a separate room. They hadn't seen what happened to their brothers, but they had heard it. The screams, the horses, the silences that followed each one. When the guards came for them, they already knew. The 3 sisters were dragged into the treasury, and there they saw it all. Their father broken on the floor. More corpse than man, the dark stains on the marble. 3 of them still wet. What was left of their brothers, Princess Zainab didn't scream, didn't cry. Her face went completely blank, like something inside her simply switched off. Princess Kadia collapsed. Her legs just gave out. She sat on the floor and began rocking back and forth, making small sounds that weren't quite words. Princess Aisha ran to her father, threw her arms around him, buried her face in his chest. Papa, Papa, wake up. Please wake up. He didn't respond. His eyes were open but empty. Wherever his mind had gone, it wasn't coming back. Hulagu watched this, then spoke. The boys had to die. Royal blood. Potential heirs. You understand. He stepped closer. But you 3, you have value. For these girls, death would have been mercy. Mongol practice spared highborn women from execution, but not from fate. They became possessions, living trophies, proof that the Mongols owned everything. Your land, your wealth, your future, your blood. Zab and Kadia were seized first. Soldiers grabbed them by the arms, began dragging them toward the door. Zab looked back one last time at her father, at her baby sister, at the stains on the floor that used to be brothers. Her eyes met Aisha's. In that look was everything. Every memory of their childhood, every moment in the gardens, every night their mother had tucked them in, every dream of the futures they would never have. Then, she was gone through the door into the Mongol camp, into a life that would be unrecognizable. The sisters were handed to commanders. Rewards for loyal service split up, sent in different directions. They never saw each other again. A document found centuries later in the archives of Ulaanbaatar mentions 2 Arab women of high birth, given to General Kaider after the fall of Baghdad. That's all. No names, no ages, no description of what happened to them, just given like furniture, like horses, like things. There are no records of their deaths, no graves, no children documented, no trace that they ever existed beyond that single line in a Mongol inventory. They don't die in history, they just stop existing. But Aisha, the youngest, 12 years old, Hulagu kept her. He pulled her away from her father's body. She fought, kicked, screamed. But she was 12. and he was a man who had conquered half the world. He kept her as a symbol, proof that even the Caliph's blood could be bent into Mongol shape. Over the following months, he stripped away everything she was, made her wear Mongol clothing, made her speak their language, made her forget Baghdad. Decades later, a Persian writer met an old woman in Tabriz who claimed to be Princess Aisha. She was 80 years old. Her CK bent like a bow, her voice cracked and broken, her Arabic fractured with strange Mongol sounds. She barely remembered Baghdad. The gardens had faded, the palace was just shapes, her mother's face was gone completely. But she remembered that night. She remembered the sound the carpets made when the horses passed over them, the wet crack that meant her brothers were gone. She remembered her sisters being dragged away, their screams fading into the distance. She remembered holding her father and him not responding, his eyes open but empty, like he had already left his body behind. And she remembered Hulagu leaning close, his breath on her ear, whispering something only she could hear. "You are the last. Your line ends with you." The writer asked her what she thought of those words now after all these years. She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much, and felt too little for far too long. He was right. That was all she said. He was right. 70 years of exile. 70 years of carrying the ashes of her family inside her chest. And in the end, she had to admit that the man who destroyed everything was right. She was the last, and when she died, there would be nothing left. Back in the treasury, the Caliph still breathed, his body destroyed from the gold, his mind shattered from watching his children, his sons crushed, his daughters taken, everything gone, everything he had built, everything he had protected, everything he had loved, reduced to blood and stains and silence. And Stai. LL. Hulagu did not kill him because the death had to mean something. It had to echo through history. It had to become a story that would terrify kings for generations. He ordered the Caliph wrapped in a carpet like his sons, tight, suffocating, but no horses came. Instead, the Mongols built a wooden platform above him and held a feast. Hulagu and his generals sat directly over the bundled caliphate, eating, drinking, laughing, celebrating their victory while the man beneath them slowly suffocated. Every movement pressed the carpet tighter. Every burst of laughter stole air from his lungs. Every toast celebrated the end of his bloodline. The feast lasted all night. When morning came, they rolled the carpet open. The Caliph's face was purple, eyes open. No wound, no blood, just a frozen proof of suffocation. The man who had laughed at Hulagu's letter. The man who had trusted his title to protect him. The man who had loved gold more than his people. Dead on the floor of his own treasury. 800 years of the Abbasid dynasty, 37 generations, ended in one night. The horror didn't stop at the treasury. Baghdad was dismantled systematically, building by building. The House of Wisdom, the greatest library in the world, centuries of human knowledge burned. Books thrown into the Tigris River, so many that the water ran black with ink. A scholar named Ibn al-Fawati survived by hiding in a well for 3 days. When he crawled out, Baghdad was silent. The streets were covered with bodies. Dogs ate the dead because there was no one left to bury them. Gone. But here's the thing. The Mongols didn't destroy Baghdad to erase it. They destroyed it so everyone would remember. Within weeks, the news reached Damascus. Within months, Cairo. By the end of the year, rulers from Anatolia to the Indus understood exactly what had happened and why it had happened. Cities didn't wait for Mongol banners to appear on the horizon. Damascus opened its gates. Aleppo sent gold before the hooves were even heard. No speeches, no defiance. Everyone understood the message. Baghdad wasn't just destroyed, it was used. The Mongols didn't conquer it to expand a border. They erased it to send a signal. A warning written not in ink, but in fire, silence, and absence. Resist and vanish, submit and endure. There was a moment before all of this, a moment history rarely lingers on, when the ruler of Baghdad read Hulagu's letter and laughed. Not loudly, just enough. Enough to show certainty, enough to reveal belief. Belief that his title made him untouchable. Belief that faith would shield his walls. Belief that centuries of history counted for something to men who measured power in obedience. It didn't. Titles don't stop armies. Prayers don't turn blades. Vaults of gold don't buy mercy once a decision is made. He had the wealth to prepare, the time to fortify, the resources to resist. What he lacked was imagination, the ability to believe the world could end for him. That's the real tragedy. Not Mongols, not the executions, not even the city itself. The horror is arrogance so complete that it blinds a man until collapse is unavoidable, until power evaporates, until legacy becomes a lesson instead of a lineage. Some empires fall to enemies, some collapse under their own weight, and some are erased because one man mistook permanence for protection. I'm Untold Black Legend, and this is what history doesn't soften. If this story stayed with you, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because stories like this don't survive on their own. We remember them, or we lose them forever, just like Baghdad's libraries, just like its forgotten names. Until next time.